Do pure sports card investors exist? Or is it just a sexy term we like to throw around in the hobby? Also, between dealer, collector, and investor, what type of hobbyist are you? Let's talk about it next.
A lot of people, they collect something they think is a good investment. That Venn diagram overlaps, and you get a person who does both, and they think both things are happening at the same time.
He has $50,000 and would like to buy a handful of cards and told me he plans to hold them for 20 years.
It's tough because how I collect, some of what I collect also I view as an investment.
When I had this card, did I think I was going to retire on it? Maybe. I was only 17 at the time.
All right, let's get into it. This is episode 5 of 8. If you haven't seen some of the other episodes, I have links down below, but this has been a really fun series so far. I've had some very positive feedback from other people in the comments and some great comment responses so far. My hope is that the next 4 videos have just as much interaction as the last 4 videos have. And the topic today is two-parted. One part is, do pure sports card investors exist? And then the second part is, between dealer, collector, and investor, what type of hobbyist are you? If there was a pie chart, what percentage of each would you fall into? And I was really interested to see what the 4 guys in the panel had to say about that. And you will be, it's actually surprising results. So I'm excited to show their responses. As far as the background on this, my original idea was to one of the people in the panel be a pure collector. Like, I felt that they were like 100%. And I felt like there was a lot of choices out there, and I went with Lou Rock. I love his style. I love his opinions on grading and things like that. And I just thought he fit the bill for that pure collector. And then dealer, I wanted somebody who was a full-time dealer. They had to, they owned a company, and that's what they did to pay their bills. It wasn't a part-time thing. So Leighton fit the bill perfectly there. And then trying to find somebody that is, in my opinion, 100% an investor in sports cards was very, very hard. And I literally had 4 or 5 people I text and said, is there anybody on YouTube that fits this bill, even an 80% pure investor? Like, I'm having a hard time thinking of anybody. And, you know, the only person that came up was Jeff Wilson, just based on the name of his channel, Sports Card Investor. But even if you watch him, he owns a card shop. You know what I mean? He also collects. So even though his show is called Sports Card Investor, he still didn't fit that bill. So I got to the point where I said, I don't think I could find that prototype, at least in our circles, you know? So that kind of started that wheels turning on, you know, how many pure sports card investors are actually out there? Because we love using that term. I don't see people in our space fitting that bill. So I ended up going with, you know, Jason as a hybrid of a collector, and he's talked about investing on his channel. And then last but not least, I wanted to get somebody who was a collector, but also was a dealer to collect. And I felt Ryan fit the bill perfectly for that. If you ever watch his channel, he's very active with COMC. When he goes to card shows, he's very active with finding cards to sell on COMC. And I think his last video, he's over $70,000 made on COMC to go towards his collection. So I thought, you know, that was a perfect person for like a hybrid collector dealer role for this video series. And I like the fact that Ryan is doing it just a little bit differently with the COMC direction. You know, I know a lot of guys who set up at shows and they deal to collect that way, but I don't know a lot of collectors who make enough off of COMC to collect. So that's kind of, you know, my thought process going into this video series. And it brings us to today's question, okay? The question that I posed to the group today was, do pure sports card investors exist? And then the second question, which is something that I was very interested in, is if dealing collecting, and investing were a pie chart, what percentage of each would you fall into? Okay. And so it was a two-part question. And the thing I'm most interested in is if you guys could say down below what you feel like you fall into if you had a pie chart and it had to equal out to 100%. Because it's not the easiest exercise to think through, to be honest with you. So I'm curious to see some of your responses to that question. And I hope you guys enjoy this one. Let's get to their answers.
Do pure card investors actually exist? I do think, because there's this question later on about card vaults, right? I do think there's been a big push in this hobby for a lot of years. There was websites called The Pit. There was eTops that tried to convert sports cards into stocks and bonds. I think NFTs tried the same thing. And there's always been a resistance from the hobby to just turn this hobby into pure stocks and bonds, where you're buying into, an IPO of a card and you're like holding it and selling it when the highs and lows, and you got all this fluidity and money and ability to buy and sell. And that's sort of what people think these vaults are going to be doing. I just think there's a big resistance to that with collectors. People want to hold cards. They want to build a collection. They want to display things and look at things. And I think if you're a pure investor, you don't do any of that, and you're just going to buy things to sell them. And I don't know, the difference between an investor and a flipper is just how long you hold the card, right? And of course, there's people out there buying right now Pokemon boxes, by the hundreds or cases and holding them. They're considering themselves as investing. And we'll see how that plays out. Some people are going to win, some people are going to lose. I think it's risky to do some of this stuff. I think there's much better things to do with your money than buy things like that and hold and hope that the market stays where it is. But I do think there are people out there doing it to some extent. I don't think a lot of them are doing it with sports cards. I think they're doing it with other things besides sports cards. I think sports cards, for the most part, are not as investable, especially modern cards, due to a lot of factors. But like such as how often 101s are printed, how grading is important for a lot of this, how things are just paralleled into oblivion. That just makes this whole thing of investing a lot harder, I think, for modern cards. For vintage cards, I think there are people out there, the Marshall Fogels of the world, who buy things, put them away, and then sell them when they get ready to move on. And those people are out there, but they're the tip of the knife point. Less than 1% of, I think, the entire hobby is something like that, doing it to that extent. As far as where I fall in that pie chart of investor, collector, dealer, when I was doing shows every month and really set up as a dealer, I was probably like 30% dealer, 20% investor, and 50% collector. And the way I did the 20% investor, I was more like a flipper. I was buying cards, holding them, and hoping to sell them later on as a dealer when they went up in value, like prospecting, things like that. And so I was spending a lot of my money and my time trying to do that. Nowadays, I'm about 80% collector and about 20% investor. And the 20% I still invest in, I consider investing, is, buying my 90s cards. I think I buy some 90s cards thinking that the market's undervalued and thinking that they will grow in value. And I'm thinking that as somewhat of an investment. Now, I collect 90s cards. So it's kind of, if it's in that Venn diagram, they kind of overlap to where I collect something that I also think is a good investment. And a lot of people, that's where they are. A lot of people, they collect something they think is a good investment. That Venn diagram overlaps, and you get person who does both, and they think both things are happening at the same time. That is where I think a majority of collectors are, that they do both something that they think is collectible and investable, and they do them together. I think that's where a majority of us are on this pie chart.
I do think that pure sports card investors exist. And I know that because I just had someone reach out to me the other day. Even though they like sports, they don't collect cards. He has $50,000 and would like to buy a handful of cards, and told me he plans to hold them for 20 years. And my buddy Steve is not alone. So I know 100% that there are definitive investors in sports cards. I don't know if it was like that 10 or 20 or 30 years ago, but certainly today, with all the attention that our industry is getting between the Jaden Daniels one-of-one that just sold at Fanatics Fest for 500 grand, or a 55 Bowman Mantle coming out of a cello pack many years ago from Vintage Breaks for the cost of $500, and the recent sale of that card was $375,000. There are certainly people that exist today as an investor that didn't exist a number of years ago. And as far as, I want to make sure I refer to the question properly, you were asking if investor, collector, dealer, or pie chart, what percentage of each would I fall into? Well, the thing is that I am an investor, a collector, and a dealer. And I'm a dealer, meaning I own the company JustCollect.com. That's how we make a living, meaning it's not just myself, it's my team, it's how I pay them. I'm also an investor because I think about some things that I buy both as a collector, but also, hey, I'd like to hold these until my son is 25 years old. And I certainly am an investor there, but absolutely I'm a collector, and it's probably my biggest problem, especially when buying collections and such, because I see this or I see that, I'm like, oh, I'd really love to keep that, but it's worth too much, and I got to pay the bills, and I have to pay people. So I'm certainly all of those. If I had to tell you where I stand on a pie chart, I'm just going to say, oh, I don't know, always 100% collector, but 50% dealer, 50% investor, and 100% collector. You might be saying, well, wait, that doesn't add up. It's 200%. I know. It doesn't make sense. And a lot of things in this hobby don't make sense. Like collecting in the industry in which you also make a living in, but I do the best I can. I answer the question the best that I could.
First part of the question, yes, I think there are people out there that are true just card investors, and they just have cards as portion of their portfolio. Maybe they're trying to diversify their collectible portfolio, and someone told them, hey, you should get some expensive cards in there. And there are people out there that are like that. And when you're talking about those type of cards, you're talking about 5-figure cards, 6-figure cards, 7-figure cards, right? Someone that buys into those because some type of advisor told them to. They have that as part of a larger strategy of diversifying, where their money is saved up as, and they don't care anything about the hobby, right? They just want to have that as an asset, and that exists. But I do think the hobby overstates how many of people like that are out there. I think a lot of people think, oh, maybe this is 30-40% of the hobby. It's probably a single digit, if that. Those type of people that are just purely investors. Now, the second part is where would I put myself in between, investor, collector, and then also, what was the third one? Dealer? Investor, collector, dealer. Yeah, I mean, it's tough because how I collect, some of what I collect also I view as an investment. Some of the stuff I don't. I have a lot of $5 cards, $10 cards that just, they're not going to go to $100, $1,000. They're $5 or $10 cards. But there's also stuff that I collect for my personal collection that I think there's a lot of room to grow. And I'll talk about it a little bit later in this video, but the Lone Jack Inventors, it's a very, very tough set to build on the non-sports side of things. A few collectors have built it, and it's taken them over 20 years.
Well, dealer is easy for me, 0. Maybe, let me change that. Maybe 2%. I don't know. If I had a car that I wasn't attached to, I have gotten rid of it, but I immediately bought something else. I don't really think I'm a dealer because my mind doesn't think like that. When I get a card, I just want to keep it. I'm excited. On to the next. Now, I think the majority of my pie chart would be collector, maybe 80%, maybe as low as 70%. Because, for example, when I buy a Hall of Fame rookie card or an auto, I put money into it because I want it, but also with the mindset that I know that the likelihood is the next person, or if I should ever get rid of it, or if my wife needs to get rid of it, if I'm not here one day, whatever I paid into it, it's likely gonna be there. Hopefully it has gone up, but I don't spend big money on cards so I could lose it. For example, I got 59 Gibby. I felt safe spending the money I did because I know when it's time to get rid of it, I'm not getting rid of it. When my wife gets rid of it, or if my kids inherit this and they need to get rid of it, I'm pretty safe to say that they're gonna get at least what I paid for. This beautiful Jackie. Most money I spent on a card, I was okay spending it because it's mine. But I know one day when it goes to my kids or my wife, they need to get rid of it, I know they're gonna get what I paid for. At least, maybe 2x, 3x. Same thing with this. I felt safe spending the money I did. I didn't hesitate. I didn't pull the trigger, my wife did. But, you know, she's been in the game a long time. She's been with me 25 years. She knows a good card when she sees one. Now, on the flip side, I've said it many times, the summer of 98, oh, what a time to be alive. The summer of 98 in baseball, what brought baseball back to life. McGwire, Sosa. Griffey was in it in the first half of the season, but Sosa, McGwire, just the pulse of baseball. Oh, that's when America was at its strongest. But rewind to 98. If you had this card was going for stupid money in 98. And now you could probably get this card for 15 bucks, 10 bucks. So when I had this card, did I think I was going to retire on it? Maybe. I was only 17 at the time. But that's an investment where it didn't work out. So I guess I'm 20% investor, but 80%, 78% collector. That's just how I think. When I acquire a card, especially a big card, I'm okay spending the money because I know for the most part, it's gonna stay where it's at. You know, if I'm investing in Judge, you know, even if I buy, like I'm looking so hard not to buy refractors nowadays because there's a 2017 refractor. I really want it, but now is not the time to buy it. And I've learned that from Trout because Trout's a 3-time MVP. His cards were bananas. His base rookie in the PSA 10 was like 2 Gs, I think. And he's still a 3-time MVP, but he's been hurt the last couple of years. You can get that same card for like 300 bucks. So the vintage, when I spend money on vintage, I think it's less of a gamble, but still an investment. It's more of a gamble with the new guys, even Judge, even the Shoheis, because look at Trout. So collector, 78%. Investor, 20%. Dealer, 2%.